Well, hello and welcome back to my channel. Today, I thought it would be fun to talk about a science curriculum that I have used off and on for many years, and that is this Berean Builders series. This book is Science in the Industrial Age, but it's part of their elementary series, and I have a long history with this curriculum. So I thought it would be fun to talk about it today because I think it's really unique. And I think when you're looking for something for your elementary age kids, it's different than when you're looking at high school. So here's my story. Years ago, I was the director of a homeschool co op, a large homeschool co op, and we were trying to find a science curriculum for the kids in our co op for elementary. We looked high and low. We ordered so many different curriculum. We ordered them, laid them out, looked at them, and we're like, no, no. This one doesn't have experiments. The chapters are too long. This one is too short. Like the book is too short. Our co op met for 30 weeks. This one, is too hard. This one's too easy. There was never a happy medium. So, anyway, our co op was using a 4-year history cycle. And we thought this was actually brand new. The first book in this series had just come out and it lined up with our 4-year history cycle. And so we started using this series by Berean Builders with our homeschool co op because the science lined up with the history. Isn't that interesting? So, how is that even possible? When you're shopping for science curriculum, usually you're shopping by a science subject, right? This series is different than most science curriculum for elementary because it is both history and science in the same textbook. Isn't that cool? It's the historical coverage of science. So in this textbook, Science in the Industrial Age, students are covering scientific advances from the 1800s to the 1900s. It's covering that time period. And every chapter is laid out in a way that students learn about a significant character in the history and then learn about one of their advances. So if I pull up the first lesson here, we can see that the first person they learn about is George Cuvier. And then when you turn the page, you learn about an experiment he did or a scientific exploration he had or a discovery. Every chapter is laid out the same. So you learn about a person, then you learn about their discovery or experiment or how they progressed science forward. And then at the end of it, there's a handful of questions, lesson review questions, and there's like 2 questions for older kids, for middle age kids, and for younger kids. So they have staggered questions that you can assign for your children. And it's really only a couple of questions per chapter, very manageable. Actually, the whole chapter is very manageable. Chapters are anywhere from 3 to maybe 5 pages, maybe. Most of the chapters are around 3 or 4 pages. And that includes both the reading about the historical character and the science experiment, all explained step by step. So here's the thing with this science. It's different than most science curriculum because we're not just covering a subject. It's not a chemistry curriculum. It's not a biology. It's not an earth science or geology. It's not following one segment of science. It is following the history of how exploration and discoveries were made. And I think that is one thing that works really well, especially for elementary school, because kids are curious. Kids love stories. Parents love stories. Let's be honest. Sometimes curriculum that uses a lot of big, heavy science words, it's just hard to read. It's hard for mom who's got a little toddler attached to her to sit down and read. But these are like reading one page. Each lesson is reading about one page if you need to read that out loud to your kids. And then you do the science experiment. So this worked actually beautifully in our homeschool co-op because our philosophy in the co-op was to do science experiments and then do the reading at home. So this gave us several experiments a week. This has 90 lessons in it. So it is designed to cover 3 lessons-ish per week. course, you can cover more, you can cover less. Your student is still going to learn a ton, even if you don't finish the whole textbook in 1 year. So, as I said, this is part of a bigger series. But one more thing I want to show you before I show you the rest of the books in the series. So, Science in the Industrial Age, the student textbook, comes with a helps and hints book. Well, you can get them together or you can get them separately. But this, it does not have a teacher's manual. So it comes with this book, and inside you'll find the answers to the student questions, which is handy, And again, they're not answering too many. And at the back, there are tests. So if you're a mom that likes to give tests, the tests are in here, the answers are in here, and you could use it as a test, or if you just want to do something open book, you could use it that way too. You could print them off and use them open book with your kids. Now, as I said, this book is part of the whole Berean Builders elementary homeschool science. So let me show you the other books in their series, because this is actually the last book in the series. Okay, so here you can see the books in the Berean Builders series. They actually have 5 books in their elementary series, starting with Science in the Beginning. And that's more like the book of Genesis, that kind of beginning. And then you have Science in the Ancient World, Science in the Scientific Revolution, Science in the Age of Reason, and Science in the Industrial Age. So in our co-op, when we used it, we did the last 4, Science in the Ancient World, and then all the way through the Industrial Age. And that lined up pretty well with the 4 history cycles that we were covering. One thing about Berean Builders is they have science for all ages. So since I'm in here, I'll just take a quick click over here. They have science for elementary, which I just showed you. They have science in the atomic age and discovering design with earth science for junior high. And I actually have a review of the earth science curriculum. So definitely check that out if you have a student in middle school. But that one can also be used for high school. That is a hefty textbook. That is not lightweight. And the last are their senior high curriculum. And my kids have used a lot of curriculum that Jay Weil wrote when he worked for a different publisher. We've used some of this as well, but my son just got into the U.S. Navy nuclear program. He's studying chemical engineering, and he credits the science curriculum by Jay Weil for helping him get through his science courses so easily because he was so well prepared. So I highly, highly recommend Berean Builders for high quality science. If you're a mom with a lot of littles at home, or if you're not even sure if you have the bandwidth to cover science, or if you love science, but you don't want anything too hard, too cumbersome, then I definitely want to encourage you to check out the Berean Builder Science series, because you can use as much or as little of this as you want. So there's no guilt if you don't finish the textbook. It can be used with all your elementary kids together. So that's very good. It also is not too difficult to read all the lessons. And honestly, this is just how I am. You don't have to do every experiment, right? If you want to read the lessons to your kids and talk about it, but you don't want to do every experiment, that's okay. Will they love doing the experiments? Are they fun, very hands-on, educational? Yes. But if you just want to read the stories, learn about the people, you could also make a timeline for these stories so you could see which discoveries were made in which order. That would be fantastic. There's so many different ways to use the Berean Builders science curriculum. And honestly, okay, maybe you shouldn't take tips from me. I'm not the perfect homeschool mom, but if you don't have the bandwidth to do science and history, you could do this for a school year. Do science as history, 2 birds, 1 stone with all your kids, and check that box, because you could take deep dives on some of these scientists in here and learn even more. I don't know. You could take all kinds of rabbit trails. And I like that about this. It is unique. It is different. It's not like most science curriculum. It is faith-based. It's always going to point back to God as the creator. However, every scientist that's in here is not a Christian, and they may have had a different basis for their discoveries. So it also is a great way to bring in conversations about your faith, about worldview, about all kinds of important topics. So if you are looking for a science curriculum that's different, that's manageable, that you can do with all your kids, I highly recommend checking out Berean Builders elementary series. I'm going to drop some links below so you can see samples of the inside of the book. You can click right over to their website and look at sample pages. They also have some notebooking pages there if you just want to print them off so your kids can answer the questions in the pages. They have all kinds of resources. Definitely check it out. I have other reviews about Berean Builders. I'll drop the links to those below as well because I'm a huge raving fan. And I hope you'll join me again next time. Thanks so much.